Good afternoon, members of the media, South Africans, Democratic Alliance colleagues, members of Parliament, members of the legislature, councillors, our members, our activists and our voters. I want to say that my decision today is not an easy decision. It has been taken after some considerable soul searching and some reflection, and it's a sad day for me. It has been an extraordinary privilege to serve this party in a number of capacities over the best part of my life. And I've been a public representative for a quarter of a century, and I've supported this party and its two predecessor parties for 1.5 decades before we formed the Democratic Alliance. So there have been some incredible highs and very few lows. When we formed the Democratic Alliance, it was a traumatic time for our party, but we took a decision to put the interests of South Africa first and to build a party for all South Africans. I had personal misgivings about it, but when the decision was made, I threw myself into that decision, and we saw incredible results. I had a number of highlights during that period, one of them being the leader of the opposition in Parliament. The other was being elected as the national chairman of the Democratic Alliance in 2015 when Mmusi Maimane was elected. And I'll never forget that at that Congress, a young, very talented, inspirational man inspired me when he said, "The Democratic Alliance is not a home for racists." He said that at his first press conference after being elected as the leader, and I was deeply inspired by that. Subsequent to that, probably the highlight of my political career was being elected as the mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay. Even the name of that municipality was not lost on me. In fact, it was a profound challenge and a great opportunity that I relished. And I relished most the fact that in the 2 years that I was the mayor, I was able to implement Democratic Alliance policies that showed a marked difference in that city and the lives of the people of Nelson Mandela Bay. A low light in that regard was when one political party in this country threatened us and tried to blackmail us as a Democratic Alliance, that if we didn't support them on the issue around expropriation without compensation, that they would cut the throat of whiteness. And it was my throat that was cut by the EFF and one of our coalition partners. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that they managed to convince one of our own to abstain from that voting, and the rest is history. And the slide in that city under the current coalition of corruption has been marked and depressing. 2016 was an incredible year for the Democratic Alliance. We met all the objectives that we set ourselves: to govern the city of Cape Town with an increased majority, to govern Nelson Mandela Bay, Johannesburg and Tshwane. Historic election. We confounded you and the nation and all the gainsayers and certainly our opponents. So we have achieved incredibly much in this party. But this year, 2019 in May, we had a less than acceptable election. We had set ourselves lofty targets. We didn't reach those targets. In fact, we went backwards. And you'll remember at the press conference when the results were known, I said that we take collective responsibility. This confused some people because in the Democratic Alliance we're supposed to be a party of individuals. We most certainly do respect and protect the rights of individuals. But you can't be a team of individuals. And we were a magnificent team of people. We had 9 premier candidates across the country, and we had a team, One South Africa, of which I was part, and we did not achieve our objectives. We then set about a review process that I'm very proud that Mmusi initiated, because it shows that he was prepared to hold a mirror up to himself and to the party. And I have great respect for the people who served on that review panel. And I want to share with you that the presentation that I made to that review panel was one of the most difficult and traumatic I'd had in my life. In fact, I likened it to going for marriage guidance counseling when your relationship is breaking down. It's a very tough time. But it is important that one does that. And we have done that. And I want to thank that panel for the way they handled the presentation of that review report on Saturday at our Federal Council. Everybody expected that the DA would tear itself apart. They didn't tear it. We didn't tear ourselves apart. In fact, we walked out of there united, and we accepted that we had to do things better and differently. We made mistakes. We confused our voters. We prevaricated on important issues, and there was too much equivocation. So that report came up with some findings about the leadership of this party. Two of our colleagues have gone already, Paul Bowie, the CEO, and James Self. And I also want to pay tribute to James Self. He was the epitome of selfless loyalty to this party. The review panel had some very specific recommendations about Musi, and I think they were unfair, and they were an overreach of their responsibility. But be that as it may, my name was not mentioned in the leadership deficit in the party. But when I say we take collective responsibility, I must take responsibility, having been the chairman of this party for 4 years, that the less than spectacular election result must be part of my responsibility. So I accept that when the buck stops at the leadership door, I was in one of those doors. And as the chairman of this party, I think it's fitting that I also take responsibility. We had a long discussion today in our federal executive, and I want to thank the members and my colleagues of federal executive for the manner in which that discussion took place. I know it frustrated you and you waited a long time. But anything that's worthwhile is worth waiting for. And I fully believe that the Democratic Alliance is worthwhile, and that's why I've given so much to this party. But I also famously or infamously recently said that there's a time to come and a time to go in politics. And I realized that this weekend that it was probably my time to go. And I'm happy to accept that. I'm happy to move on and try and build or rebuild my life. Not easy for somebody with my complexion at my age and my hairstyle. But I'm prepared to do that. What I'm also not going to do is I'm not going to slag off my political party. I joined this party voluntarily years ago. I've served it selflessly because I believe in it. And I know that new leadership will emerge in the Democratic Alliance and that leadership will take us forward. And I believe that they must take us forward. Why? Because the ANC has neglected South Africans. The excesses of the ANC confound us on a daily basis. If you don't know what I'm talking about, consider the interview with Baleka Mbete on Al Jazeera, and you will see a party that is in complete denial. The Democratic Alliance is not a party in denial. The Democratic Alliance realizes that we have made mistakes. We have taken things for granted. We have taken voters for granted. And I know that we will learn from those lessons. And I wish my colleagues that have the responsibility to take this party forward and to protect the interests of all South Africans, to make sure that we have an effective opposition. We were the best opposition prior to 1994. After 1994, we were undoubtedly the best opposition in this country. And after 2000, when we formed the Democratic Alliance and slowly started taking over government across first the Western Cape and latterly across the country, we have shown that where the DA governs, it governs well. And South Africans deserve good governance. And I know that the DA can govern well and that the DA will continue to govern well. I wish everybody in the Democratic Alliance, and especially the voters, all the very best. Don't turn your backs on the only political party that can save South Africa. The parties on the fringe of this political spectrum in our country do not offer a prosperous future for all South Africans. Only the Democratic Alliance offers that, and I wish them well. Thank you.